So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to touch the little box. It wakes the box up, and once the box is awake, then you get to choose which of the looks you want to play with. I believe the look Mark has us in right now is the full. There's lights backstage, there's lights in the house, there's front light coming in the house, that's the full. Just so everybody can see it, let's go ahead and push night just so we can see what night looks like. Be aware, we're about to go dark. And everything is off except technically what Mark turned on manually around the kitchenette and what's over the soundboard.
Additionally, the night mode has the front edge of the stage lit, the stairs are lit, and the back of the house raceway light is lit, and that's all for the safety ghost-like purposes. So if somebody were to walk into the space at night, they wouldn't trip and kill themselves.
Normally, you would then decide what you wanted to turn on for the purposes of your run. If you go to, we've got pre-show, we've got backstage works, we've got show, we've got stage general, music concert, recital. Oh, these are some new ones. I haven't seen all these. Mark's been playing. So, we're going to go back to full. That brings everything back up. Now, it's important to note that all of these choices here, not all of these choices, 8 of these choices here also exist in the button boxes that are in the house. And you have to understand that somebody in the house can also push those buttons at any time. If you want to make sure that nobody can lean against the wall, accidentally turn on lights, you can lock those button boxes out. And to lock it out, you'll find that there is a button here called lockout. So when you are ready to run your show, for instance, you would go to the show mode. You go to the show mode. So go ahead and let's push show. And that's gonna do certain things in the space. So we've got some backlights and things like that. And then you would push the little lockout. There it goes. And now those button boxes in the house won't work. So you've made it safe from other people accidentally turning on the lights in the middle of your show. So I'm strongly going to recommend that become part of your discipline, that you know how to turn this on, how to turn this off. This is where, when you're done with the show, you would of course push lockout again, unlock it. And now you have the ability to do whatever, control it however you want it. Make sure your stage manager understands this process. The recommendation is this is the button box that you should start with and that you should end with. In other words, the first person in, this is the one they're going to turn it on with. The last person out, this is the one they're going to turn it off with. You can certainly go in and out with the other button boxes. Just make sure that they're unlocked.
Quick question. For rehearsals, they usually use full?
They do.
Okay.
And full used to be much brighter than it is now. But this is a nice brightness.
And the other button boxes, this full look is labeled as number 1. It's the top left button.
Yeah, and
so it's the logical one for you to hit if you're entering through the theater itself.
And night is number 8, which would be the far bottom,
yes,
right, which would be the logical one.
And the nice thing was on the other button boxes, when you hit night, that button turns blue.
Very easy.
Will the board override any of that?
So the board doesn't override, it's additive.
Okay.
So it's important that you know what mode you're going to operate in for the button box, and that you put yourself into your show before you switch the button box. So for example, I come in, stage manager, I'm turning things on so everybody can get set up, I go to full. When I'm about to open the house, I want to make sure the board is already on before I switch the mode of the button box, because I want the board to be in my first cue, and then I switch the button box to be my show mode in order to run the show.
I was wondering if you wanted to turn something on, like somebody walking down some stairs at night in the dark. In show it might be out.
No, show
Stairs
always
stay
has
on.
the stair lights on because that's for safety
Yeah,
reasons.
that's right.
And we're gonna throw another caveat in, but it's an exception of the reality. But yeah, ultimately. So once you deal with the button box, and I realize we spent 10 minutes on the button box, but this is important just for your stage managers, you're then ready to turn the board on. So to turn the board on, pull off the handy dandy cover, and I'm happy to hold it up here for you. Make sure you put it on when you leave. The actual power switch for the board is found between 7 and 8, 7 and 8 up the top over the edge of the board. So you actually have to reach over the edge to find its a little rocker switch. Don't turn it on yet, but if anybody wants to go ahead and just find that rocker switch, because I saw some of you thinking about where it would be. Yes, it's in my notes, but that's where power is. Anybody want to find the rocker switch before we turn it on? You're good? Okay. Go ahead and flip the rocker switch. You'll hold it for about 2 seconds, and then release, and the board should come up. And the first thing that's going to come up is the underlying operating system for the board. It's a derivative of DOS and Windows, and it's got this nice little "what show would you like to load" choice. This screen is also where you can do 2 other things. You can duplicate shows, and you can change the description of shows. So you've got a couple of things that you can do here. A fundamental capability of the board is that everything you do is automatically being saved. So if you open someone else's show and make changes, you have just changed someone else's show. So the first, well, it's not a big deal. I mean, hopefully it's not a big deal. A good lighting designer brings their now USB memory stick and make sure they save their own shows. But I'm just saying, be aware it does autosave. That's actually a good thing, because as you're doing your changes on your show, they're all getting saved for you. Yes, sir.
Sorry, quick question.
No, please.
There's no password protection on a given show?
There might be. I have not tried that.
Okay.
There is one. We decided not to do that because the password was admin level,
Uh-huh.
and it would actually prevent you from booting the board.
Nope. Go.
There you go.
Not necessarily a good thing then. So just be aware, you can copy someone's show from this screen. You can copy somebody's show and use it as a basis for your show. You can also copy, or would be copying, the show from the Arts Barn. They've got a default look at a default show that you can clone and use for your show.
It has a patch already set up.
It's got the patch already set up, and it's got the lights already programmed, and it's even got some specialized items already set up for you. So there's a lot of good stuff in the Arts Barn default. And Mark has a safety copy, so if you should happen to screw up his default, he can still go back to his safety.
Does it have auto-generated palettes?
I don't think it has much in the way of auto-generated palettes. If it comes with the hog, yes, it has that. But if it's something that I don't know that Mark and I have.
The generated palettes are the color selection, and it is set up, and you'll see that when we get to it further, that it's set up as a color wheel, or you can access it as different emulations of different manufacturers' specific colors. So, for instance, like there's a whole line of Roscoe Lux, there's a whole line of Lee, there's a whole line of GAN. But again, these are the manufacturer's best guess replication of what the colors are really like. Between me, myself, and the walls, my preference is to go through the color wheel. I mean, if I know I'm going to go for a particular Roscoe color, I might start with that and then modify with the circle, because it's just easier for me to work that.
Yeah, but yeah, I find the colors never match what
Yeah.
I was expecting from an incandescent.
That's a big change for anybody working with LEDs, as a matter of fact. That colors that we have all been used to for so many years are different under LED, because the basic color temperature of LEDs is a much higher, whiter light. You know, LEDs, the actual color temperature averages around 5,600 degrees Kelvin, and we're all used to incandescents running between 29 and 3,200 Kelvin. It takes a while to get used to that. Which is why the color wheel turns out to be a little bit more effective, at least to me, because then you can go, well, this is the color I would really like it to look like, and it comes closer then. And it also then allows you to be much more experimental. You find you're not limiting yourself to the standard Froskelux 60 and 03 and 22. You could actually do so much more because there's a whole big wheel of color there for you.
So, what we're going to do is just to show you, to talk about how we clone a show. If you click on the Browse button, there's a little button there called Browse. Yep, and you can use the mouse, or you can use your finger. You have a list of all of the shows that are out there, and one of the shows should be the Gaithersburg Art Barn. Which one was it? The base.
It should be the one with yesterday's date.
Yeah. Okay.
You may have to scroll down to find it, but yeah, you
28th,
did find
right?
one for.
Yeah. Keep scrolling down.
This one created, wait,
But there's.
oh, here we go.
29.
No.
Go to the next one below. That's 29th. There we go.
Oh, this one, hog shit, oh, wait,
Sorry, that was me touching it.
this
Yeah,
one?
that one. And what you're able to do is you can take a show and you can copy it by right-clicking, choosing to copy, and then you can paste it by going to again right-clicking and doing a paste.
Where am I pasting it down?
You're pasting it into the same list.
Are we down here?
Well, that's where the name is. No, you're pasting it into this list here. So just go ahead and right-click again.
Oh, just anywhere?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, let me
And
do
the
that.
paste did not show up.
So copy. It's not showing up.
It's not showing up. Let's see if we can find an empty spot towards the top or towards the bottom.
Maybe down, no. That's the wrong one.
Gosh darn it. I knew I didn't want to record it.
No, this is good because that's what happened to us too.
Well, wouldn't you do it in,
You have to create
it's like
a
it's down
space.
here maybe, copy here?
So it,
Because you can't.
Is there a way
Not
to like
sure what
click
to paste.
off
You
of
need
that?
to open the file manager proper all the way.
I thought we were in the file manager. We're in the launch show. Oh. Sorry.
Browser maybe?
Yeah, the browse file. So you'll need to close this window. There's an X there to close that window.
Okay, you're on the top
Well,
screen.
no, your mouse has moved over to here, so just go
that's
back
another
over.
thing, too.
Or you can use your
There you
finger.
go, Got it, okay.
So it's touch screen as well as mouse.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yes, I'm going into
the
file
board is a
browser,
touch
not
screen,
browse.
Yes.
And
Here.
then the
Try that.
previous screen is also a touch screen.
Okay.
And let's see if we can find that same show and do a copy.
Here. Yes.
Yes. So we just copy that.
Okay.
And then over there where it says shows, you should be able to do a paste.
Sorry.
There we go. Now it's going to warn you, hey, you've already got a show with this name. You want to just give it a different name, so choose the rename, which is the first button.
No, it just says resolve.
Oh, resolve. Okay, it's resolving by renaming. Sorry.
Okay.
Upside down and fold-wise.
So
And it's gonna give it the same name with a little 2 notation after it, and that's now your show. And so now you can take that and you can actually change its name to something else. So it doesn't have to be called Master. Yep. So let's just call it TAPP training. As you've got your whole keyboard here. Yep.
Oh, it went off.
Okay. Rename.
Please.
Okay.
Okay, and so now you can go ahead and just finish this, close this window, and now you'll be able to load that show.
So,
Yep, close it.
close.
And now from your load show, click on the drop down that's there or the browse, and you're looking for that tap. And if you don't see it, just go ahead and go to the browse. The first browse that we used, because you know it'll be there.
Okay. And then, okay.
Yep, and that's gonna actually do a load.
Elemental information.
Next time you go to the screen, it will be part of the drop-down list, and if you're the only show in, it will be the first item on the list. It'll always show up as being the default. So the second and third times, it's much easier to use. It's just that first time, you've gotta get that copy of the show. Now, everything we do is gonna be saved, but we're not gonna affect the ArtSmart default view. We're just gonna affect our view. So, welcome to the interface. It's a 2-screen interface. It's got the local panel that we started with down here, and it's got the upper panel that we see here, as you've already discovered. The 2 panels are, as soon as the board's on, they're both related. You will find that this screen is as though it's over to here. So just pretend there's a screen here. Keep coming, and you'll see that your mouse comes over. So the 2 screens are as though they're side by side. No, Hog doesn't let you do one above the other. It only lets you do left and right. So there is no such thing as above and below.
Well, there is a way to do left and right, but it's in the elemental setup.
Well, but it can only be left and right. It can't be up and down. So you can't do the where you think of it logically. So we've just done it off to the side. So we did it to the right. Anyway, so if you lose your mouse, check your other screen. And that's always a possibility. There are lots of things that you can bring up on this screen. There is a default plot. In other words, a button that brings up a bunch of stuff automatically, but you can customize what comes up on your show. So in other words, Mark's gonna provide you a list of things that you can do, but you may want to override that list. So if I have you just click on the button called plot there, it's in the upper right of your main screen.
Can you put it up on the top monitor?
No, because that's part of that particular screen. Yeah, ooh, exactly. Ooh, you brought up a whole bunch of stuff. And the things that you brought up include some various controls for doing various things, color choices and where the instruments are located and et cetera, et cetera.
This is the thing you can't copy into the, it's too dark.
This is the thing that I tried to copy and it came out black. Yes, that is correct. So this is the black screen. Yes.
Are the first 12 lights the same general wash as they were before?
The back of house essentially is the same. That is correct. Yep.
Can you open this up on a regular computer?
So the answer is there is a PC version of the Hog software, but it's generic because there's a whole family of Hog machines. So the answer is yes, you can bring it up, and yes, it works, and yes, it looks mostly the same. But it is definitely got some of its own idiosyncrasies.
I mean, how are you trying to copy this for?
It was on I was just using, you can do an export of this screen. There's even a little button. And it creates a PDF of this display, and that PDF just doesn't render.
Is it Apple version or just PC?
I think it's just PC. I don't believe there's an Apple.
There's no Apple version.
Sorry.
However, what you can do is you can save the show on a USB thumb drive. And then if you have the PC emulation program, you can load the show from your thumb drive onto the PC emulation program, and it'll give you pretty much the exact same thing. You'll see all the cues you created. It'll have the particular settings that we have set up. For instance, if you open up the PC emulator in its standard form, the plot button is not there. It's not part of the way the program is set up. However, if you load in the ArtSbarn basic parameters queue and the plot function appears on there, and you can operate it the exact same way as you would in the ArtSbarn. So it does give you the ability to work with your show and then, make any changes you want, like timings or whatever, and then you can save it on your thumb drive and then go back to the ArtSbarn and load it up again. And you would have saved yourself some time. You need to be comfortable with that, however, because you are working with something in the blind. The changes you make on that PC are not seen. You have to visualize it in your head. Unless you go ahead and buy the $550 dongle, which gives you DMX
Visualization.
capabilities, and then allows you to plug your PC and the dongle into our lighting system, and you could take full control of the lighting system that way.
We're not saying you should do that.
That is down the road, however. We are working to get a dongle for a laptop, so we could do it that way. So it would be an additional means of operating the system.
Can you upload a copy of the standard plot so we can just download it without having to come here and copy it up?
Yeah, I will be more than happy to send a copy of the PDF.
You could also, when you
Thank
get up in
No,
the PC snippet,
the file,
the snip
not
tool.
not the light, not the file.
But it's
The,
the same image,
Q
so
file.
it
Oh, the
really
file?
is, it's
Yeah, I'll
black
send
on,
them a
it's
copy
gray
of
on
the
black,
file.
it just
Yeah,
didn't
send
render
me a
very well
copy
when
of
I
it.
shrunk
That
it
way
down and put it on the
the
sheet of
software
paper, is
can
what it
play
boils
with
down
it
to.
now.
It really needed to be black on white, not white on black. It just did not render well. And again, it was late last night and I wasn't gonna try to rebuild it at the time. So, couple of things so now that we see that this is a whole layout, you can build your own layouts. If you don't like this one or if you want something else, you can bring your own things up. So there are a couple of screens that I think are really useful. Great that the plot brings up all this stuff. I immediately started thinking, well, I want different things up, and learned that you can create your own plot. Just like you can change your lights, you can change your plot. So, first of all, understanding that you can move and resize any of these windows. They're all little windows, they all have little X's, and if you want to just start closing things, just to get us down to one screen, go ahead and just close a bunch of these with,
Steve,
like,
is that touch screen or is that just a picture?
this is also a touchscreen.
This right here, this plot, can you touch that?
Yeah.
and
Oh, that's cool.
activate that light?
The answer is you should be able to.
Oh.
But it is, yeah, this is touchscreen as well.
Can you touch, close these over here?
Just to do the little X's. Yep.
Oh, I see.
I'm just getting us to a single screen so that we can focus on a single screen. You can go ahead and close some of those as well. So remember, your mouse goes that way, and it'll eventually bear over here.
There it is, okay. Oh, down here too, oh,
Yep.
okay.
That's about as much as you can close. Okay, so we've got one window right now. Understand that there are controls for that window. So if you choose this to be the window of focus, so just make sure that it's the highlighted window. Again, come towards me with the mouse, and then just click anywhere inside of that window.
I'm getting used to it, huh?
Okay, is it up there? Yep.
You can always just touch the window if you're not finding it with the mouse.
Get that, touch, where am I touching?
Yeah,
it?
anywhere, just anywhere, just to make that the active window, and it may be.
There.
Oh, your mouse
There's
jumped
your
up there.
mouse.
Oh, okay.
That's a way to find it too.
Yeah,
Um,
it's not easy to get it.
You have the ability to control characteristics of this window using size and using move. For instance, this screen right now is on this particular monitor. Choosing the move button that's down here will move it to the other monitor. Choosing the move button will move it back. Yep. If you want to change its size, push the size button, and you'll go through a whole rotation of sizes, he says. There's full screen, half screen, quarter screen, top half. So in other words, you're just going through this list of predefined locations, or you can adjust the boundaries yourself. This is just so that you can control what you have on your display. There are things that I've discovered that I find far more useful as far as day-to-day. I love having this. This is cute, this is cool, but it's not what I wanted as a programmer. I wanted a list of all of the instruments. I wanted a list of all of the cues. I wanted those lists, and those are available as well. So, for example, there's a button there that's called Output. Choosing Output tells you every instrument that's in the place and what its current value is, what its current output is. And so it gets you the ability to really know what you're doing and where you're doing it. I liked having that to confirm what I was seeing. And again, it's another window that you can move around the screen. We are going to be working with a show. We're going to be interested in working with a list of cues. This brings in a new challenge in the environment, and this is the fact that this board has multiple cue stacks, multiple lists of cues. Think you want to do one cue stack until you get more comfortable with it. For the time being, think one. And in order to do that, what you have to realize is that there are buttons. They're called the choose buttons. There are 10 of them above each of the cue stacks. So if you look at each one of these sliders over here, the faders, you'll find that each fader has its own play, its own pause, and a choose. That's because you can run all of these cue stacks simultaneously. That's awesome if you are a lighting designer for a rock and roll concert and you want things happening all over the place. But in theater, we are so monolithic. We think top down, single stack. Choose which stack you want to work with. Now, Mark has already made some cue stacks that that everybody shares. But you are welcome to override them for your own show or use some other. Here's my recommendation. This is just a recommendation. Mark is working with 8, 9, and 10. Those are cue stacks that he has created for the Arts Barn. Leave those alone. Technically, 6 and 7 are up in that same list. Leave those alone. That give Mark room to expand in the future. We have 1 through 5, and you only need one of those. So here's my recommendation. Choose 5. It's the one that's near you. It's the one that's easy to get to. And Mark's also going to be using 1 because that's the Grand Master. This board's Grand Master is cue stack, is the number 1 slider. So, all of that being said, means if you want to be working on a particular cue stack, you are going to push the button that says choose for that particular cue stack. So, my first question, for anybody who wants to answer this, what cue stack is currently selected according to this board?
5, I think.
10?
Oh, it's
Yeah,
10.
10.
Oh, it's 10 up there.
Top.
blue light, yeah.
It actually says 10, and it's got a little blue light on it. If you want to go to 5, ta-da!
That's right close.
What you have just done is you've selected that cue stack, and the go and pause buttons that are the master go and pause buttons are now associated with the chosen cue stack.
If another cue stack is running, it'll stay running.
It will.
Okay.
You can run them parallel. That's
Okay.
the idea of the board.
Okay.
But the choose is telling you which one your
Control it.
master has gone to. Huge. This was my epiphany moment. Oh, that makes so much more sense than I was completely lost prior to this. So that was for me okay. I have subsequently created my own little cue stacks for other purposes, knowing that they're all in parallel and I can use any one that I want to use and do anything that I want to use when I want to do it.
So
But-
not that we'd ever do it, but so if this controls the master for 5, how would you just hit?
Yeah, the play on one of those others.
You wouldn't hit choose though. You just
You wouldn't
leave it
hit
off and
choose,
hit, and
because
then it just-
choose is saying, I want the whole board to be focused on this one stack. But I can control other stacks. And you actually have 10 pages of these. In other words, this set can be done 10 different times. So you've actually got 100 cue stacks to play with. Yeah, don't go there. Don't go there. We want 1.
If we actually
And
want to get there, how do we
we were
get back?
confused by we were confused by having 2 on the old ETC Expresses. How many of you have been in a theater where they put a little cover over the second go button so you wouldn't get confused? You've now got 100 go buttons. Just saying. To bring yourself back down to 1.
Yeah.
You'll be happier. So, just wanted to make sure you knew that. Now, we are interested in a couple of other displays, or at least I've been interested in a couple of other displays. We did the output here. The other one that I use a lot is the Q list button. Now, the problem is, the Q list button is going to bring up almost nothing right now. The reason is, the stack you've chosen, stack number 5, has no cues in it. We haven't programmed it yet. So go ahead and close that window because it didn't do us any good. And let's bring up 10 again. Let's choose 10 and now do the cue list for 10. And you'll find that it does have a cue because Mark has programmed something to happen in the space. So it's got a cue associated with it. It's the lights that
The house light.
it's the house lights. Thank you. It's an example of the house lights. You can do that at any time. You can switch back and forth, and you can bring up other stacks just by choose, which stack you want to bring up, and then choosing cue list. If all of a sudden your show has disappeared, check to make sure you're in the right stack. Again, 2 a.m. in the morning or whatever, you're tired, you've been working on this for a long time, and you're in the wrong stack, all of a sudden your show has disappeared. No, it hasn't, it's just under the wrong stack. Choose the right stack and your show will reappear magically. So let's go ahead and close this as well.
Quick question.
Please.
If you write some cues and then you realize you just wrote a bunch of cues in stack 4, can you copy paste?
You
the
can
file?
copy between stacks, you copy between it within the same queue stack or across queue stacks. You just have to indicate. There's a syntax that's in the big, you didn't get to see the demo of the big massive book, the 600-page book. There is a sequence to the way they do their language. Their language is always source, filter, what part of the source you might want, verb, what are you trying to do, and target. And so you can do anything as long as you always do source, verb, target. And the answer to your question is yeah. And so you may specify that I'm doing something with a queue, or I'm doing something with a parameter, or I'm doing something with a whole block of cues, and so you can absolutely do that. Yep. You just always have to think source, verb, target. So let's get a cue in here. In order to get a cue in, we need to bring up some lights, and in order to do lights, at least for me, I'm a numbers person. I know some of you like to use the touch screen and just show things by, why not? There we go. Getting the wrong. So you can either choose the lights that you want to work with by choosing some of these lights. And it's supposed to put a blue border around it.
It doesn't look like you're in the regular plot.
Well, you're,
Okay, well, let's just do it with numbers.
I was just closing out that screen.
Okay?
Trying to-
Hmm.
You may have to use the mouse to do that.
There you go. So that probably needs to be
And then
closed.
re-engage plot.
Yeah, I'm
on
gonna try
the
plot again.
Board itself.
Yep.
Okay.
There you
And
go.
see if you can select with that.
You again may have to use the mouse to select.
Maybe that's not.
oh, good. Getting better at it.
Oh, there you go.
That worked that time, I think.
Okay.
It's blue. It's blue.
Okay. What you've just done is you've selected the light that is one of the ellipsoidals that's over on this side of the stage. To make that a little easier, why don't you choose some of these pars that are the down, the aimed, oh, we don't know that all those are working right now.
Yeah, they work. The only ones we're having problems with are the ones upstage that are proceeding.
Yeah, okay. Oh, only those guys, okay.
Right.
So you go ahead and collect a couple of pars, and what you can now do is you can now set, you can say I'd like to have them at a certain brightness, I can give them a particular color. You've chosen the lights, and again, I find that doing this numerically works faster for me. So I would at this point do an at and a value like 50. So we're gonna move to this little keypad.
Just pick one or both?
You've
They're all-
chosen 3,
okay.
that's fine. And then give them a value of 50.
Where is this showing up?
It's showing up on a command line.
There it is,
which-
okay.
Yep. And then press enter.
Put us into
So
night
they're on
mode.
there as
Put us
white.
into night mode.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's gonna get dark for everybody.
Yep, there's some.
And let's go ahead and try changing their color.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool.
And I didn't think I
That's
would
very
like
cool.
the hue saturation wheel. I like it much better than trying to control the individual colors. So being able to do this hue saturation
Oh, that's
and
very cool.
move
That
your
is
mouse
cool.
around and
That's
choose.
That's
Yep.
the color picker, right?
That's the color picker, yep.
Yeah.
But you also have predefined colors. This would be the
Slots.
Lee or the Roscoe or whoever.
Okay. So
Predefined.
where's the exact, in case you want to make it the exact color that you have here? Because this is,
RGB value or something.
yeah, where's the, so you're saying, okay, I want to make all of them, like all these ones exact same color. The chances of you clicking the exact spot
Are next to nil.
are, right, so
So-
where do you?
So again, that's where that output gets you what the information is. So if you bring up the output again, and if you look at the lights you've chosen, there is your hue and saturation values for the lights that you've chosen.
So you can just type in then for anything else you choose?
Well, so you can, yes, you can specify the lights. This is telling you what the output is, but you could specify the other instruments and use those same numbers with the hue and saturation value and get exactly the same thing. Yep.
What I tend to do is I go to the plot, select the instruments, then select the color, then I determine the value. So all of the instruments have been assigned that particular color. And until I make other requests of other instruments, each time I change the color, it affects all the instruments that I have selected. What Steve is mentioning is like, you've made a change and then you move forward, and you realize, I gotta go back and fix this. And this method, where it's the copy and paste, is the much easier method of doing it, because then you are literally giving a no numerical value.
And do be aware that you can create palettes. It's gonna be outside the scope of what we can cover today, but you can create palettes of predefined colors that you want to then use over and over again, and you can then bring up your own palette. And there are palettes available for color. For the movers, there's palettes available for position, for moving and choosing that. So you can create predefined, knowing that you can then reproduce very quickly a color set that you want to use. So we've done some lights, we've given them some color, we want to save them as a cue. Now, if you, at this point, what we're gonna do is we're going to just do this in the crudest way possible. We're just gonna record it. However, before we record it, let's make sure we know we're recording it to. Which cue stack are we about to record this cue into?
5. Well, 10 is defaulted right now, but.
Which would be perhaps one that we don't want to use, and we know it's 10 because the choose is there.
Right.
Go ahead and choose 5 again. And that way, when we go to do our record, we know where it's going to go. So let's go ahead and just record this. The first one is going to establish the cue list itself, the existence of the list. From then on, then what you can do is you can augment that list, you can change that list, but you've got to build the list the very first time. And so to do that, we're just going to request to do a record. And there's a button here called record.
Oh, here it is.
Yeah, right there.
And you'll get used to it. So go ahead and push record.
Alright.
And you're going to record this as a cue. So you can push cue or you can just type in the number. There's a button there called cue.
Okay.
That'll confirm that you're doing a record of a cue. And then let's just call it 1 for the lack of, and then just press enter. And you'll see something happen. First of all, it did record that. It actually created a new cue list right here on button 5, because button 5 was what you chose. So it did all of the associations. Because you were in the right choice and it didn't have a cue stack there before, it brought you to the right location. Guaranteed you're gonna put it in the wrong location the first time. Gonna happen. Don't worry, you can always move things around. Every feature that we have access to, if you want a list of all of the choices, you can actually call up that feature in that list by double choosing. So for example, in this case, we now have our cue list. We already know that if we wanted to see that cue list, we would push cue list and we'll see the list of cues that we've created in.
Ready to do that?
Yep, go for it. And so we've got one cue in that, and it's the one we just created. let's close this. What if we wanted a list of all of the lists? If we wanted a list of all of the lists, it turns out there is a list button. And if you press it once, it doesn't do anything. What it does is it just says, hey, which list do you want to work with? It just puts it in as a command. Clear that. Press it twice. And it brings up your list of lists. And so get used to that as a trick. You press it once, it's going to be putting it into the command sequence for you to do something to it. Press it twice and it will bring up the display of what that is. And we will find that there is the list that Mark started, the house list, and then there's our list, which is the second list. And you can build plenty of lists. Again, don't get swamped, don't get overwhelmed by that, but the bottom line is you can build all of these lists. So, I just wanted to show you how to bring up everything that you do. Palettes, lists, queues, just by double clicking will always give you the list of lists instead of just the thing you're trying to manipulate. So it's one of the hog approaches. We don't need this list, but if you wanted to, and you wanted to take something and copy it, choose list 2, that's our source, so just click on the list 2 while you're using your mouse or your finger.
Where's this? Oh, here. Okay.
And if you wanted to then duplicate it, press the word copy, which is a button down there, and then press, it says list 2 is going to be copied to, and then push one of the other buttons, one of the other squares. Any square you want.
Okay.
Don't be a sequence, go somewhere out in the middle. Yeah, there we go, perfect. You just duplicated your list in a second place. That approach can be used to duplicate lights, can be used to duplicate queues, can be used to duplicate lists. Anything can be duplicated by just saying I want to copy it. Would you like to move it instead? Choose this copy of list 2. Choose move instead, and now pick another number somewhere else. And she just moved it. Again, that skill, easy to demonstrate here, works for everything else. So if you need to take, you program the wrong light, you can move it. In other words, you're not moving the light, you're moving the programming of the light to a different instrument or to a different cue number or whatever. You've got that same control. So let's go ahead and add one more cue so that we can see what this is going to run like. We're going to go ahead and close this cue list because we don't need it right now.
And it's all saves, just.
It's automatically being saved. And we know that we're in our cue stack of 5. We know that, wait a second, I don't see anything on. And the reason I don't see anything on is because 2 things. Both were not in the cue stack. We haven't started using the cue stack. We simply put something into it, but we haven't actually started using it. And this board does have a master. So, slider number 1 is your master. You need to make sure that's up to run your shows. Go ahead. Slider number 5 is the intensity for your current cue stack. You've got to make sure that's up too. And now you're ready to run the show.
This has to be pushed too, though?
It doesn't have to be pushed. Nope, just need to bring those 2 sliders up. At this point, to run your show, you can press the go button. And your lights have come up. So you're now in Q1, and you'll even see, I didn't have the list up of your Q stack. My apologies. But if you bring up your Q stack list again, you'll actually see that you're in 1, the little arrow sitting there, it's indicating you're in queue number 1.
Steve, can I just give one helpful hint? Because this drove me nuts during Godspell. Over here, you see where it says name? I mean, this says Q1 right now, but you can make it say anything you want. So you can have it say, duck sitting on a pond, okay? Whatever the look is, but when you copy a queue, it'll say like copy of Q10 and copy of Q23 or whatever, and that's not the queue number.
Yeah.
It took me 2 shows before Steve pointed out to me that the queue numbers are the left column. I literally had to put a piece of paper over this because this is light and this is what attracts your eye, but these are the actual queue numbers. And I can't tell you how much stress I was under until Steve told me
that's
that.
just a name there, type.
Yeah, that's just a name, but it'll say like Q10 because Steve would type it the first time Q10, but then later it would say copy of Q10, and that's 20 Qs down, and you don't know where the hell you are.
That's what's good.
And so I was going.
In other words,
nuts.
he's telling his lighting designer, please label your cues.
Or
now
in-
that we have the choice to do so.
Yeah.
Or at least put a piece of gaff tape
No,
over this.
don't do that. Mark is over there freaking out. What are you
Well,
doing?
no,
Putting gaff
I
tape
folded
on
it over and
Oh, that makes it so much better.
I didn't put goopy stuff. I didn't stick it to the
Well,
board.
but let's do a,
Use
let's do a
Gooby
copy
Gone to
so
get the
everybody
sticky
can see
stuff off.
what Jerry is lamenting.
You see?
So, if you wanted to copy Q1,
Yeah.
what would you do based on just verbalize a few things, and someone else can go ahead and give us some insight.
Your face.
Did you want to insight? Did you want to try it?
Copy button?
Okay, but what are you copying? So you need to start by telling us what you want to copy.
Okay.
So you would have started really by, and let's clear to make sure we've got nothing remembered. Q1. So go ahead and type in Q1, and then copy.
Okay.
See, I get you. I'd have been copy Q1.
Understood. But
Yeah.
now we get to specify what the target is. And notice it says Q1 copy 2,
Okay.
and let's just call it
Copy two.
5.
Just 5?
Yep. And press enter.
And enter?
And two things. First of all, you saw that it did a copy, but more importantly, that you're seeing what Jerry just lamented. The copy says copy Q1.
But it's in Q5.
But it's in Q5.
But it's in
Yeah, so we
Q5.
can do
Q5
that,
now
yeah.
is a copy of Q1.
Yeah.
It's not a permanent copy. In other words, there's no history. It doesn't remember that it's part of Q1. It's just was made an instant copy.
Yeah.
And now you can do anything you want to this queue.
So here's a question. Can I click, can I click and right click to rename it?
Give it a shot.
No.
Try double clicking. Did double clicking not work?
Ah.
There you go. And so now you could put in
Duck.
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 Since Jerry wants duck,
Put a duck in there.
D-U, typing upside down, C. Okay. So next time I do a show, I need to make sure, for Jerry at least, I need to make sure I label all of my cues.
Duck 1, duck 2,
Duck
duck
one, duck
3.
Right.
You know that there will be a duck in the next show I do for you, Jerry.
Yes,
You know
there
that
will,
will be there.
there will.
Okay, now, what queue are we in right now?
1.
What queue is being displayed on the screen, on the stage right now? You say 1, why do you say 1?
Because it's highlighted.
Okay, it's highlighted. What else might tell you that you're in Q1?
Oh, that line there, okay.
I don't
This
know.
bar right here shows the 10 choices that are up right now, and it will tell you for choice number 5, for chooser 5, you're in queue number 1. So you have a single view that lets you see all of your stacks. Again, we don't think multi-stack, but this board does. So just be aware, that's that heads-up view that says, hey, here's everything that's going on in your chaotic world.
Is that the current queue and the next queue?
It is the current queue and the next queue. That is correct. Go ahead and press your go button. And of course, we didn't change Q1 to
Right.
look any different or Q5 to look any different from Q1, so nothing happened. But we have moved on to Q2. Notice that the arrow and the highlight have moved, and that this now is indicating that we're in the duck queue.
Yep. Okay.
Question, just because I'm looking at the stacks here again, to go back to the house, would we always make sure we turn the push the master, and so both these come up before we do blackout for pre-show?
Because you're not gonna see, both those go up, and you need to do the go. Because you've gotta get yourself into the show. In other words,
So wait, so these two and pre-show,
so these two and the go button before you take out.
Because you probably, the first one's gonna be what you do, have pre-show,
Right.
first queue or something.
I
You go
don't
to
feel
Q1
like
and-
that's registering.
You go to Q1 and then you hit the house tonight.
So when you hit
Okay.
go, it's like ready. And then you take the lights out.
So go is to, so just because you put the slider up does not mean that cue stack is being used yet. Until you press the go button, that's what makes that cue stack actually take the first cue.
And you can type in Q6 and go, and it would go to that one instead of the first one.
You could, you can do Q6 and then just press enter and it'll go. That is correct. So let's make a quick change to this particular cue. Let's choose some other instruments. I'm not sure what we did the first time, but let's go ahead and just do 1 through 6.
So cute.
So you're already in the queue. We're just going to make a change to this queue. So we're just going to do a 1 through 6, and I'm just going to use the numeric keypad this time. Oh, bless you.
Thank you. Wait, I'm not sure, just wait, 1 through 6?
Yeah.
1, yep, 1, and then there's a through button right over there. Oh, that's actually the minus. So try 1 through
Oh, through.
6.
You mean literally through? Okay.
Yep. 6
6.
at, give it some value of intensity, and press enter. Okay, brought a lot of light. And if you'd like to change its color, okay? And you're in a queue, but you're changing the value of the queue. You want to do an update, or you can do a re-record. Either approach is fine. If you do an update, there's a button there called update. Yep, go ahead and press it.
Well, which one do you recommend?
I started doing re-records because that's what felt comfortable, but as I got better at it, I went and do an update all the time. So my recommendation is update.
But what's the difference?
So re-record will let you get it somewhere else. So in other words, if I'm building a stack, actively building from one view to another, I can't do an update because that means the queue already exists and I'm updating the queue. I would record it with a new number each time. So that would let me take what my current look is, modify it, and record it as a new queue. So I would use the record technique in when I'm constructing. But when I'm going back and tweaking things, then I use update.
Kind of a way to copy a cue.
Yeah. There is a big caveat with that.
Okay.
A difference between the re-record and the update. For one thing, the moving lights, this is just a hiccup with the moving lights, don't accept changes properly under the update command. You need to re-record the cue with the moving lights. Secondly, this board, as all boards before, tracks changes. That is, you create a look in Q1 and it's there, and then you make changes in this Q2. But if, say, dimmers 1 through 10 don't change in the Q1 into Q2, you expect them to be the same range in Q2. So you've updated that. But if you decide then that you don't want the previous Q and you delete Q1, the change, unless you had physically re-recorded the Q in Q2, then 1 through 10 don't carry through. You lose them. This board is designed that if you record them once, it carries through all the way along until you tell them to change again. But that is only through the update functions. If you want to ensure that they come through, because you might reduce the number of cues that you're doing, you have to do the re-record, otherwise you lose it. And this is especially important with the moving lights.
Yeah.
Because if you don't re-record the moving lights, they will go back to
And I
neutral.
was going to mention tracking. I was going to mention tracking anyway, but I did not understand the whole carry through characteristic. So I fully appreciate that.
I literally just really learned this past week.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you were to update this queue, you could get away with update, but that's only because Q1 is providing that down purple that you created originally. If we were to ever get rid of Q1, we'd lose our down purple. Is what
The
you
dot
just
lights
heard.
would be there, but the color may disappear.
Oh, the intensity would still be there?
Yes, sometimes.
Okay.
That's
So
painful.
Well,
Just record, don't update.
So let's
record,
let's
that's
do
fine.
let's do a record. Now, when you do the record, go ahead, push record. You would want to specify the exact same queue number if you were trying to replace the existing queue number. So just type in a 5.
Q5, or just 5?
You can do a 5, it will assume cues
Okay.
unless you are trying to do something else. So you can
Okay.
just do a 5
Enter.
and enter. And it's going to warn you, do you want to insert, merge, or replace? And you're going to want to do a replace. That being said, there was, I should have pointed out, there was something else that also was down at the bottom of the screen, was this whole concept of tracking. Tracking is on by default on this board. And if you don't want something to be tracked, you have to make sure you turn it off. For those of you not familiar with what tracking is, let's say you have a whole series of cues in which a particular light is at 10% for that whole series of cues. Director tells you that they're in the middle, you want in the third cue, you want that to be 20% instead, you want it to be brighter, but just for the third cue. What tracking will do is if you change the third cue, from that point on, they'll all be 20.
Okay.
Because it will track all of the 10s that you changed and turn them into 20s. This board actually even supports tracking forward and tracking backward, which just, for those of us who don't do this a lot, that just completely tosses my mind. But anyway, if you don't want it to track forward or backward, just make sure that the tracking is off, and there is a button down at the bottom of the screen for tracking. So I constantly was doing update, track off, because I wanted to make changes that only this one cue. And so I got a particular sequence in my head of pushing certain buttons because I was making a certain number of changes. Just to show you that so you can see it, go ahead and press the update button. We may not have made any changes.
Yeah.
Well, hold the update button down for a moment. Forward track and back track. It actually, there's little buttons there for controlling the tracking.
Okay.
You can release it. So you've now got your 2 cues, they do different things. Couple of other characteristics about the board that you should be aware of. And I know that I'm over time, Mark, sorry. Just a couple of other characteristics that you should be aware of. By default, the board wraps from the last cue to the first cue. So if you press go again, it's going to take us back into Q1. Now, you say, well, wait a second, Steve. I'm still seeing a big green light. Why am I still seeing a big green light? Definitely the little arrow says I'm in Q1. And I didn't track backward. The green light shouldn't be in this queue. No, it has nothing to do with the wraparound. The wraparound was simply the cue sequence. Something else that we all have learned in previous boards and we forget in this new sophisticated board, we have to release the lights that have been turned on. We turned on certain lights and they're still captured and we need to release them.
Oh, because we were programmed.
Yeah.
Because we were still doing the programming.
Okay.
So now, I want you to do a go. Green lights come up. Do a go again. Now the green lights will go away because we haven't captured them anymore, and so now it's actually doing what we programmed. But it's one of my other notes. If the lights aren't working the way you expect, make sure you cleared any captured lights from your programming, because it's entirely possible, especially when you're troubleshooting, you make a change in Q17 and then a change on Q30, and you go, 30 shouldn't have these lights on. It's because they're captured from the change you made in 17. Make sure you clear in between. And it's just, and we know that from other boards, because I instinctively, I do that release on the ETC board. You just have to do a clear here. It's the same idea. You can turn off the wrap feature. You can actually control a lot of these things that are inside this board. And I apologize, just from a timing point of view, I've already gone 15 minutes over my time. I don't know where to go from here, other than you're gonna need to play with it, you're gonna need to practice it.
I will email all of you a copy of the ArtsBard basic file. So that, and I will also then send you the link to the manufacturer's site that has the PC offline emulator.
And I've got that in my notes as well. I put those links in my notes, but you have to type my notes, whereas he can send
Yeah,
you the
if
link.
a show's running and we want to come in and can we come in and set up a show? And will the person that comes, I'm assuming the person that comes back in knows to go to their show first,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
And
so,
that's
yeah.
the training.
yeah, so yeah, and the board holds multiple shows. So for instance, we created something today, but we'll do something else tonight. And something tomorrow will be there, but then we gotta go backwards for something else, it'll be there also. So it's think of it as just as a big computer with a big ass hard drive in there, it can save multiple shows there. So your only concern would be if you do make any changes to your show, because if you're changing somebody else's show, you would have to physically have had to open up their show.
And that's
make
why
any
we're not
changes.
allowed to move the instruments out there, because somebody else is expecting those instruments
And
to
you
be.
save the pin drive frequently in
Oh,
case.
how do you save it to the USB drive?
So, in order to save it to a USB drive, I have provided an extra little cable here. Yep. So, basically, they're USB ports on the back, but I exposed one
Yeah.
so that it would be easy to get to. And you just plug in your USB, and you can request to save it to that device. And you can save it from here.
By the way, before you get out of here,
So-
very cool that you can actually see what colors you've selected on this.
Yeah, you can see the
Very-
purples and you can see the
Yeah,
greens.
that's very
Yeah.
cool.
Now, which is facing the stage? What's the layout angle of this?
This is behind the proscenium where we are. Specifically, there is the
Right.
cube, or those four
Right.
lights. This is in front of the proscenium, so that's out there. And so these lights are facing the stage. So look at this
I know, it's
gray
like if they
box
could
as
flip
being
it
the
around, it
stage.
would be so much better.
We could flip it around.
Yeah.
Can it be
Seriously?
flipped?
Can
Can
you
it be
flip
broken?
it?
We would
I feel
have to be
like it.
redefined. What? So that's interesting.
Because I feel like that's downstage, right?
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
closer to us is upstage, or should like.
Okay,
intuitively.
that's interesting because I've always looked at it this way.
Yeah,
That I
this-
was looking at it from an audience member's point of
This is
view.
the way, this is how light cloud is usually.
There, yeah.
Is from but the answer is
Yeah,
yes, you can do
true.
anything you want in your show. You're welcome to redefine that. And I will, just so you know, next time I come in here, I'm going to take my Godspell show and I'm going to use it as my baseline, because I've got my own little tricks that I've built up from Godspell that I'm going to want the next time I come in here. The good news is everything will still work the same because it's the same lights.
Right.
That's the plus of having a house plot that everybody has to adhere to.
Sure, that once you say, oh, think of yourself here looking at the stage, then you kind of, okay.
Yeah, if you think of
When
it
you
that
look
way, it
out
makes
there, it's
sense.
confusing, but when you
Yeah.
look, yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, if you move the board into the house and it's got a USB, or rather, network connection in the back of the house, you can move this out in the house. Then all of a sudden
And
that
then
does
it's-
make sense.
does make
Yeah.
sense. That's a good point.
Because now you're looking at it from the house point of
Yeah.
view.
Okay, so how do you record a USB? You plugged it in, then what do you do?
So
Where
you would
you-
do the setup. There's a button there called setup.
Okay. Let me do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we are looking to do.
Shows.
Okay. Show 4.
And let's see, you're going to be choosing. This is the description. There's the name of your show. There's the description, and what you're going to be doing is choosing a different target. And show settings. I think it's under backup.
So why is it showing Hog Show 4 when we just called it Tap Training? But
No. So the file is called Tap Training. The description. That's just the description of the show. So it's a separate. It's meta information.
got it.
You can change what the meta information is. So if you want to change the description, you can also do that.
So where do I?
So choose backup. I think it's backup. Yeah.
Okay.
And you're going to see this list. And if you scroll here at the very top, you see the drop down arrow that says shows. Click on that drop down and you'll see that. Oh. Okay, try going up. Try using the up folder. There we go. There's my USB drive.
Okay. Let's
Do not double click. See, this is where it's not a Windows interface.
Oh boy.
If you just click once on theater, that's my little drive,
That's the name.
it'll take you into it. Those of us who use Windows all the time, in that same situation, we would have double clicked. but DoubleClick would have taken you not only into theater, but would have taken you into one of my folders
Ah.
inside of theater because it recognizes the clicks as being something else.
Okay. And then you
Okay,
just
so
give it
where
a
do
name.
you-
Give it a name, or you can build a folder if you want to build a folder. I mean, this is just another browser interface
Okay.
for doing
These are
this.
Folders.
Do you
Yep.
say okay then?
Go ahead and just
What is this? This is folders. What is this? Selecting a different drive?
click it. Let's see what it does. Connect to a network drive. There we go. So we don't have any network drives, so you're not allowed to do that.
You just copy. Okay, got it.
And so we'll call it tap. T
And again,
Thanks.
the PC emulator has the exact same functions. And this is how you would
Now, all you've done is
access
created the
files
folder called tap. Now you'll have to find the folder called tap.
Go into this function to be able to extract your file.
Keep going down, it'll be alphabetic.
It's literally just like a PC or Linux.
And again, you
file.
clicked once just to
And
get
that
into the
gives
folder.
it-
That's all you need to do.
You
Don't double
understand
click.
file manager.
And now you can say
What if I double click on that one?
it would have ignored it.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. And then you can do an OK, and that's going to save the tap training into that new folder on my little.
Good. And then to load from there.
So you'd have to go back to the load, and you'd have to make sure your USB drive was in, so it
Right.
would load it in from the USB
So
drive.
you say load, and then a menu comes up, and you pick.
Well, the load screen comes up first thing,
Right.
and you would just choose, instead of choosing a show that was already
Right.
there, you would go and navigate with the browse to
To
the USB drive.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Fair
But
enough.
then, once that's loaded,
It's actually in the
Then-
and then it does go
then-
onto the hard drive.
Yeah, it's copied there, and
Right, and so the beauty of this is that it's always making a copy onto the local hard drive. But for you to take one with you, you have to reload your thumb drive each time.
Right.
And then if you made changes overnight,
it'll
you'd have to reload it
load it, and
each
it
time you
updates
come in.
what's here.
If you didn't make any changes, it would still be there.
Right.
The only thing you would want to do then is when you come in to make certain that you load your show, because
Right.
we have other things in, we may have loaded one of our shows in instead.
Right.
And it'll automatically overwrite whatever was in there for
Yes.
your show. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry that was as brief as it was, but hopefully you got some fundamentals. I know that you didn't get any of the documentation. If anybody else didn't get any of the documentation, I will be happy to give you my email address and happy to send you an electronic version, because I'm happy to share so that you're a fighting chance. Again, and the Arts Barn, the Arts Barn was nice enough to let me